The forbidden flavor asterisk, the first thing she noticed was the scent, rich, unfamiliar, and almost dangerous in how it pulled her forward like a hand to her throat. She had never smelled anything like it on her world, where meals were functional, cold, and gray like their skies. This was different. Steam danced from the plate in slow spirals, rising in waves that curled around her sensitive nostrils and teased her alien senses in ways she didn't understand. Captain Elijah Crow stood across the table, arms folded. Watching her reaction, with a mix of curiosity and caution, he had served this dish to humans hundreds of times before, but never to someone like her, someone from the Volari species, who had never tasted cooked fat, sugar, or spices. Her name was Nira, and this was her first forbidden contact with anything from Earth that wasn't translated, filtered, or sterilized. By the interstellar code, she leaned forward, her silver eyes glowing softly under the low light of the outpost mess hall. "What is this?" she asked, her voice low and uncertain. "Chicken tikka," Elijah replied, tapping the edge of the tray. "It's comfort food," he added, though even he didn't understand why he had gone through the trouble of making it for her himself. She tilted her head, processing the word comfort, her internal translator struggling to match it with a Volari concept. Her kind didn't eat for comfort, they consumed for fuel, for clarity, for control. But this smell-it did not offer control. It offered chaos. She picked up the human fork with her long, jointless fingers and stabbed one of the chunks of meat with practiced curiosity. Steam hissed as it broke, releasing more scent: coriander, cumin, garlic, and something deeper. Like history soaked into flame, Nira brought it to her mouth and took a bite. The taste hit her like a pulse from a fusion cannon, hot. Sweet, smoky, hot, and alive. Her eyes widened as her breath caught in her throat. Her tongue didn't know whether to welcome the flavor or fight it, and her body reacted in the only way it could, by sending a wave of chemical confusion across her nervous system. Her pale skin flushed violet from the base of her throat to her high cheeks, her chest rising sharply as if gasping for balance. Elijah's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward. "You okay?" he asked, concern flickering in his voice. But also something else, an awareness of how close she suddenly looked to something vulnerable, something undone. Nira opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her body trembled slightly, not from pain, but from sensation overload. She had trained in gravitational shifts, fought through plasma storms, survived vacuum tremors, but this taste, this human food, was making her knees weaken. She placed the fork down slowly, as if it were a weapon that had turned on her. "What is happening to me?" she whispered, her voice almost too soft to catch. Elijah didn't answer right away. He watched the color deepen in her cheeks, her pupils dilating slightly, her breath growing uneven. "You're reacting," he said. "Your body's not used to this kind of food, this kind of chemical complexity." He paused, then added, "That's just the first bite." She looked down at the rest of the plate, and the glow of the sauce seemed almost to shimmer in her eyes now. "Why would you?" "Give me this," she asked, but there was no accusation, only need. "Because I wanted to share something real," he said simply. "Not protocol, not politics, just taste." Her fingers hovered again over the fork. Trembling with restraint, every part of her screamed to leave, to file a report, to purge her system with cleansing salts, but some instinct deeper than her training urged her to stay, taste again, feel again, fall again. She picked up the fork, and the second bite was even stronger. Her body wasn't ready for pleasure. The storm began after the second bite, not outside the outpost, but within her. Nira staggered back from the table, one hand gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her breath came in short bursts, her body heating in places that had never reacted to environmental stimulus before. She wasn't sick. She wasn't poisoned. This was something else entirely, something primal. Elijah stepped around the table, his boots silent on the polished floor, careful not to alarm her further, but his presence only made it worse. The smell of the food lingered in the air like a predator mixed with the scent of human skin and spice. She had never known humans to be dangerous in this way. "I need to leave," she said suddenly, but her legs didn't move. Her body betrayed her again, as if drawn towards something it couldn't name. Some fire it had never been warned about. Elijah didn't reach for her, but his voice lowered. "You don't look okay, Nira," he said. "Do you want the medical officer?" She shook her head sharply, her silver hair falling across her eyes. "No," she gasped. "No scans, no logs, no questions." Her people would see this as a contamination. Her reaction to the food wasn't just chemical, it was emotional. And Valari science didn't allow emotion to interfere with biology. Yet her body was awakening in ways she had no words for. It wasn't just the taste, it was warmth. It was pressure building inside her skin, her lungs, her spine, like she was expanding from within. Arousal on Valari worlds was clinical, paired, scheduled, monitored. But this was untamed, raw. Her thighs tensed under the long robe she wore. Her breath ragged, her skin glowing violet along the base of her neck. Elijah took a cautious step forward, Nira. He said softly, "If you're reacting this badly, maybe we should get you somewhere quiet, just until it passes." She looked up at him with wide, trembling eyes. "You don't understand what this means," she whispered. "If the others find out what this food has done to me, they will quarantine me compromised." He looked at her, uncertain. "You're not compromised," he said. "You're just ... experiencing something new?" But she shook her head. "No, Elijah," she said, her voice barely a breath. "This isn't just new, it's forbidden." She reached for him not out of need for balance, but because some part of her needed contact. The heat from his arm made her tremble again, this time not from weakness, but desire. Not romantic. Not emotional, not yet, but instinctual, her senses screamed. Every touch magnified, nerves alight with strange energy. She could feel the human meal in her bloodstream, racing like fire through her chest and gut, sending signals her ancestors had buried long ago. Elijah stiffened slightly at her touch, but didn't pull away. Her fingers slid along his sleeve, just enough to make him feel her shaking. "Come with me," she said, her voice low, strained. "Please." She didn't wait for him to respond. She turned and walked, stumbling slightly out of the mess hall and into the dark corridor beyond. Her room was cold and sterile, just like every Valari design: white walls, gray floors, no personality. But when she stepped inside with him behind her, the air changed. She turned to face him, her back to the wall, breathing fast. "I can't go back to my people like this," she said. "They will know." Elijah crossed the room slowly, his voice calm. "Then don't go back right now," he said. "Just breathe." But she shook her head. "This feeling," she whispered, placing her hand over her own chest. "It doesn't stop. It's not just in my mouth," she added. "It's in my blood. It's waking things that were supposed to stay dormant." Elijah stared at her, unsure what to say, but very sure of what he saw. An alien woman battling her own biology. All because of a taste he had shared without knowing the consequences. Her body was not ready for pleasure, not like this. And yet, it had come for her anyway. Her species wasn't designed for this asterisk. Nira curled against the wall of her chamber, her knees pulled tight to her chest, as if trying to trap the heat now flooding her body from within. Her skin shimmered with a faint bioluminescent glow, shifting from silver blue to deep violet. The shades of Valari, shame and arousal blending like storm clouds under her skin. She had trained since childhood to suppress sensations, to remove chaos from the body, but this was chaos incarnate. It came from one bite of human food, and now it wouldn't stop. Elijah stood near the entrance, not touching anything, barely breathing. Afraid his presence might make things worse, and yet she had asked him to stay. Her voice had cracked when she said it. "Don't leave me." He had never seen a Valari like this, open, trembling, undone. She wasn't just overwhelmed, she was awakening. "Nira," he said quietly. "What's happening now?" She lifted her eyes slowly, and he could see the rawness behind them, stripped of logic. They're stripped of training, stripped of command. "My body," she whispered. "It's reprogramming itself." He stepped closer, cautious, but calm. "What do you mean, reprogramming?" She swallowed hard, her lips trembling as she tried to explain. "Our species was altered generations ago," she said. "We removed the need for physical pleasure, for emotional interference." He nodded slowly, trying to follow. You removed ... feelings? We repressed them, she corrected, suppressed them with neurogenetic dampeners. But something in that food, she said, pointing toward the direction of the mess hall, it bypassed our filters. It lit something inside me that was never meant to be lit. She was sweating now, a rare sign in Valari physiology. It was spreading heat between her thighs, pulsing through her core like a rhythm she had no control over. Her fingers curled against her robe, clutching the fabric tightly, as if she feared what her own hands might do next. I don't know how to stop it, she whispered, her voice shaking. Elijah took another step closer. You want me to help? She looked at him with fear, not of him, but of herself. No one has ever helped us through this, she said. We were engineered not to need it, but the tremors kept coming, waves rolling through her frame, not painful, but all-consuming. Her hips shifted slightly as she sat up, her spine arching just enough for him to notice the way her body begged for release even if her mind still resisted. What if it doesn't stop? She asked. Elijah lowered himself to the edge of the narrow cot. Still keeping a safe distance. I'll be here until it does, he said softly. Won't let you go through this alone. She blinked slowly, and something in her expression changed. Acceptance, maybe, or surrender? The glow beneath her skin grew stronger, more focused along her collarbones, chest, and the curve of her jawline. She placed one hand over her belly. My system is producing heat at dangerous levels, she said. I feel it pooling in places that should not react. Elijah leaned closer, not to touch, but to see. Her breathing was shallow, her skin slick, her thighs clenched. She was fighting an instinct older than any Valari code. I don't know what's going to happen if it peaks. Ow, she whispered. I don't know if I'll survive it, he hesitated, then said quietly. Then let's keep you grounded. She looked at him, confused. Grounded? It's a human concept, he explained. We use it when people are overwhelmed, emotionally or physically focusing on the present moment. The senses, one at a time. Smell, sound, touch. He added. She gave a shaky breath. Already did smell and taste, she said, her voice almost a laugh. What's next? Elijah met her eyes with calm steadiness. Touch, he said. She didn't back away. Her hand lifted, trembling slightly. Reaching toward his arm again, not for balance this time, but curiosity, her fingertips touched the skin near his wrist, just above his veins, and in that second, her body convulsed gently, not in pain. But in surrender, something inside her had broken open. Something far older was waking up. Her touch ignited something in him too. Elijah didn't expect the spark to jump into him when she touched his wrist. He thought he was only helping her stabilize, but the second, Neera's skin, made contact with his. A strange warmth surged up his arm like lightning through water. It wasn't pain, but it wasn't entirely comfort either. It was connection. Her body trembled again. And this time, his own pulse responded. A human heartbeat was slow compared. 2 Valari rhythms, but now his chest felt like it was syncing with hers. Matching a new tempo written in the space between their fingertips, she gasped, drawing her hand back, but the air between them shimmered faintly, as if charged by what had passed. I felt that, she whispered, not accusing. Not confused, but amazed. So did I, Elijah replied, his voice a low hum. What was that? She looked down at her hand, flexing her fingers slowly. That's not supposed to happen. She said, our skin shouldn't respond like that, not to a human. She leaned against the wall again, but this time it wasn't fear holding her there, it was pressure, building behind her eyes. Behind her heart, Elijah moved closer, slowly kneeling beside her cot, still giving her the choice to back away, but she didn't move. Your food did something to me, she said, but you are amplifying it. His brow furrowed, unsure whether to be concerned or honored. Is it dangerous? He asked. Neera tilted her head as if listening to something inside her own blood. No, she said finally, but it's irreversible. Her glow pulsed with deeper hues now, and her breathing steadied but not in a calm way. It was the breath. Before impact, the calm before surrender. Elijah, she said softly, I think. My body is choosing you. He stared at her. Choosing me for what? She stood up suddenly, her robe falling open slightly at the collar, revealing more of the glowing skin beneath. Velar, do not bond like humans, she said. Our bodies decide first before the mind, before the law, if you're sent. Your voice, your presence, trigger a return response. The bond begins, and once it starts, it can't be stopped. Elijah stood slowly, eye level with her glowing alien form. Are you saying your body's imprinting on me? She nodded. And the worst part is, she whispered, I want it to. Her voice cracked slightly as she reached for him again, not just to touch, but to hold. And this time, Elijah didn't hesitate. Their hands met. Fingers interlaced, skin pressing skin, and the spark was no longer a spark. It was a current. Nira's legs weakened again, and Elijah caught her gently, easing her back onto the cot, as if her bones had turned to mist. She looked up at him, her chest rising and falling fast. There is no returning from this, she whispered. If I complete the bond, I cannot be reassigned, cannot be separated. Elijah met her gaze, steady and strong. Then don't return, he said. Not if it means breaking what's already started for a moment. They simply breathed in each other's presence, the food long forgotten, yet the taste still alive in her memory. And then Nira did something no Valari had done in generations. She leaned in, rested her forehead against his chest, and exhaled a sigh that sounded like peace. Her body had started it, but now her heart was following too. The bond was forbidden, and already too deep asterisk the alarm rang across the outpost at 0600, sharp and clinical, breaking through the silence of the corridor like a scalpel through skin. But inside Nira's quarters, time had already stopped. She was still curled against Elijah's side, her glow dimmed slightly, her breathing calm. But her thoughts spinning like a collapsing star. Outside, the station prepared for another inspection cycle, protocol reports. Planetary scans, but Nira no longer belonged to that rhythm. Her pulse now beat with his. That was a violation. Elijah watched her in the dim light, his hand still gently resting against the back of her neck. He knew what this meant even if she hadn't said it outright. Valari law forbade uncontrolled bonding, especially with off-species contacts. To bond without state clearance was considered a biological breach. To bond with a human was a declaration of treason. Someone will notice, she whispered, voice rough from emotion. My levels are changing. They'll scan me soon. Let them scan, Elijah said quietly. You didn't do anything wrong. She looked up at him with eyes that flickered between fear and desire. I touched your skin and nearly melted from the inside. She said, my glands are responding to your voice. My body marked you as mine. And you didn't even resist. He gave a soft laugh, not mocking, just tired. I wouldn't even know how to resist you, he admitted. You stood there glowing like a goddess, and all I did was serve lunch. She blinked, a strange emotion fluttering in her chest that she couldn't name, but it felt warm. It felt human, suddenly. The community buzzed against the wall. Valari Officer Nira said, a sharp voice. Report to MedLab 3 for scheduled bioscan. Blood turned cold. They'll detect the bond, she said, sitting up too fast. Her hands gripping the cot. They'll know it was triggered without containment. Elijah stood beside her, calm but alert. We'll tell them it was accidental, he said, exposure to new food. Environmental variables, nothing intentional, but... She shook her head. They won't believe it, she said, and even if they do, they'll isolate me for reprogramming. He grabbed her wrist gently, turning her toward him. Then we leave, he said. She stared at him like he had spoken. A foreign language? Leave? There's a human shuttle docked for maintenance, he said. It's off-grid for 12 more hours. We take it and disappear, he continued, until the bond stabilizes and your people stop hunting you. Nira's breath caught. You'd leave your station, your rank, your planet for me? He nodded. I didn't come to this edge of the galaxy for medals. I said I came to see something worth risking everything for, and I found it. Her hand reached for him again, slower this time, no longer trembling. You don't even understand what you're offering, she whispered. My people won't just exile me. They'll erase my name. He pressed her hand against his chest, steady and warm. Then remember it here, he said, and someone who won't. Forget for a moment. Neither of them moved, the gravity of the choice hanging heavy in the air. Leave everything, or lose each other. The bond had already begun, and neither of them was willing to break it. Her glow turned to fire the moment they tried to separate. Them two guards stood outside the med lab. Both Valari, both armed not with weapons, but with sterilizers and neural pulse bands meant to suppress emotional spikes. Inside, Nira sat upright on the bio-slab, her expression frozen calm, but her body told another story entirely. Her glow, once soft and violet, now flared brighter with every breath, waves of color pulsing along her neck, arms, and chest like fire trapped beneath her skin. The technician frowned as the scanner word above her. Neurological readings are abnormal, he muttered to his assistant. Endocrine levels suggest bonding acceleration, but there's no approved partner listed in her registry. Nira said nothing. She couldn't, because if she opened her mouth, she might scream, not from pain, but from the pressure. Her bond with Elijah had fully rooted overnight, even though they hadn't consummated anything. It didn't matter to Valari biology the body had chosen. Now it was defending. Elijah paced outside the lab doors, fists clenched at his sides, his mind racing with everything that could go wrong if they detected his involvement. They'd strip his command, wipe his records, maybe even hand him over for diplomatic punishment. But he didn't care, just wanted her safe. A red light blinked above the door. Containment protocol initiated. His heart dropped. Inside the lab, the technician placed a hand on the scanner. Terminal, we're initiating bond suppression, he said. Her vitals are unstable, and the system's triggering a failsafe. No, Nira said sharply, her voice slicing through the sterile air like a blade. You don't understand what you're touching. He didn't listen. The suppression began. Cold pulses of engineered light targeted her nervous system, trying to shut down the gland that had awakened during her tasting of human food. But instead of calming her, the energy made her rise. Her back arched, her hands clenched into fists, and a blast of heat erupted from her chest. Throwing the scanner off its axis, the lights in the medlab flickered. The guards outside grabbed their cums, shouting over the static. Elijah? One of them barked. Stay clear. She's destabilizing. But he didn't move away. He moved toward the door, inside. Nira stepped off the slab, glowing brighter now, her skin radiating with pulses of heat and light. Her eyes burning silver. You cannot separate what has already fused, she said, her voice no longer soft, but filled with something ancient. The technician stumbled backward, hands raised. What are you? He whispered. She turned to the glass wall and stared through it straight into Elijah's eyes. Her voice cracked through the cum system. I need you. He slammed the override panel with his palm. The door hissed open, and the heat spilled out like the breath of a furnace. Elijah stepped through it without hesitation as soon as he crossed the threshold. Her glow stabilized, her breath calmed. The alarms died. Everyone stood frozen, watching as the human and the Valari stood face to face in the center of the scorched lab. Elijah reached for her hand, and this time when they touched, the fire didn't rage. It settled. Nira leaned into him, and the glow around her faded into a soft, steady pulse, alive, but no longer out of control. She's bonded. The technician whispered, fully, then let her be, Elijah said, wrapping one arm around her shoulders, because I won't let you take her again. For the first time in Valari medical history, suppression was cancelled, because the subject chose her bond over protocol, and the bond had already chosen back. They called her contaminated, but she became something more asterisk. The Valari High Council summoned her 3 cycles later. Their message carved in sterile syntax, report for debriefing or face biological annulment. To them, she was no longer officer. Nira. She was a case file, an incident, an anomaly corrupted by human contact and uncontrollable instinct. But to Elijah, she had become something far more than a reaction. She had become a choice. They stayed on the run for 2 weeks, moving from research colonies to abandoned cum relays, always one step ahead of the Valari extraction teams. Nira's body had stabilized, but the bond only grew stronger, her senses sharpened around him. Her glow now pulsed with warmth instead of urgency. Each time she touched him, this was with trust, not confusion. Each time he whispered her name, her body remembered it like a vow. They hid in a human freighter's hold when the final signal came. A public broadcast from Valari Command. Subject Nira has rejected reprogramming protocols. Failed recall, and is hereby declared biologically divergent. She is no longer Valari. Elijah read the message with a slow breath, watching her expression shift. They're erasing you, he said quietly. But she didn't flinch. She placed her hand over her heart and smiled, a steady smile that wasn't sad but free. Then I'll become something they can't name. She said, because for the first time, I'm not running from what I feel. They found sanctuary on a neutral moon, orbiting a dying star. No laws, no scans, no expectations, just time. There. She built a new rhythm. She tasted food without fear, laughed without restraint, touched him without questioning the urge. Her body had once betrayed Valari law, but now it guided her to something sacred. She stood in a field of bioluminescent grass, watching the purple sky ripple as twilight fell. Elijah stepped beside her, holding a dish he had crafted himself. First dessert. Sweet and warm. He offered it without words. She took one bite, and her glow deepened, not in shock, but in pleasure. And then she kissed him, not with confusion or loss or rebellion, but with understanding, because that first taste had awakened her, but love unexpected, wild, and fully chosen was what made her complete. They never returned to Valari space, and in time, others like her emerged Valari, whose bodies rejected the cold edits of tradition, who dared to taste, to touch, to bond beyond species. They weren't called contaminated anymore. They were called firsts, and Nira was remembered as the one who changed everything because she once took a bite of something forbidden, and it made her feel alive.